Despite their differences, Aurora, the queen of a land of magical creatures called the Moors, agrees to get married to a prince named Philip, who is from a human kingdom. Even though their kingdoms don't have a history of liking each other, the lovebirds look happy to be with each other. However, when Aurora's godmother, Maleficent, hears about this, she gets angry and starts looking for her. Meanwhile, Philip arrives at the palace with his guards, led by his old friend Percival, who doesn't seem to like the fact he's getting married to Maleficent's goddaughter. Philip doesn't care about this, and he tells him to avoid saying anything bad about his wife-to-be. Just then, he goes into the castle and immediately informs his father, King John, about his proposal to Aurora. King John is happy with this because he has always wanted peace between both kingdoms, but Philip's mother, Queen Ingrid, doesn't look pleased. She, however, pretends to be happy for Philip, after which she tells him to invite Aurora and Maleficent for dinner. King John and Philip are shocked to hear this, but Ingrid says it's best if they already get familiar with Aurora's godmother. Elsewhere, Maleficent angrily approaches Aurora to complain about her decision to marry Philip. Aurora says she loves him, and that's why she doesn't mind marrying him. Maleficent then says the marriage can't work, because people from the human kingdom don't like the Moor folk. Aurora insists that she knows what she's doing, and she begs Maleficent to support her. She also tells her godmother that Philip's parents want to have them over for dinner. Even though Maleficent is not too sure about this, Aurora convinces her to come along. While Philip and John are talking about the upcoming dinner with Aurora, Ingrid doesn't look pleased. She heads down to her closet, where she happens to have a secret entrance to a place where her workers are producing weapons to defeat the fairies and other magical creatures from the Moors. She also meets with her scientist, Lickspittle, who is doing experiments to find the best way to eliminate the creatures from the Moors. As she meets him working, she tells him that he needs to speed up with what he's doing, because Aurora has accepted Philip's proposal. She then opens a secret door where she looks at a spinning wheel and tells Lickspittle that everything is going according to plan. Later that day, Aurora gets accompanied to the human kingdom by Maleficent and her right-hand man, Diaval, whose true nature is as a raven. As they get to the human kingdom, everyone looks scared and runs away from Maleficent, but she doesn't care about it. Not long after, she enters the castle and is introduced to John and Ingrid, who pretends to be happy to see Maleficent. As dinner starts, everything seems to go well, until Ingrid starts asking questions about how a human like Aurora was made queen of a magical kingdom. She also mentions a moment from Aurora's past where Maleficent cursed her with a needle, which put her in a deep sleep. Things soon get heated up as Maleficent gets angry, but Aurora stops her from using her powers. As Ingrid then starts talking about how Aurora would enjoy being a part of a real family, Maleficent loses her cool and scatters the table while also dealing with some guards who try to attack her. She then tells Aurora to forget about the wedding, but her goddaughter disagrees. As they argue about this, John suddenly falls, claiming Maleficent has done something to him. However, Maleficent says she didn't do anything, but Aurora doesn't believe her, and she begs her godmother to heal the king. But rather than do this, she just flies out. As she's flying away, a lady named Gerda, while working on Ingrid's orders, shoots down Maleficent with a special iron bullet. The bullet pierces through Maleficent's flesh, and she ends up falling into the sea. However, as Gerda tries to confirm whether she's really gone, another flying creature dives into the water and flies away with Maleficent. Back inside the castle, John is taken to the room while being unconscious. As they keep wondering what's wrong with him, Ingrid says that Maleficent cursed the king, and she's the only one who can lift the curse. Aurora looks disappointed and says she's returning to the Moors to find Maleficent. Even though Philip doesn't think it's a good idea, Ingrid tells Aurora it's the right thing to do. However, as Aurora gets to the Moors, she doesn't see Maleficent. Diaval also shows up and says that he didn't see Maleficent return to the Moors. Elsewhere, Gerda secretly meets up with Ingrid to give her an update on what happened. Even though she says that the bullet took down Maleficent, Gerda adds that something else picked her back up. Just then, Ingrid instructs her to get all the iron bullets ready, because they have to prepare for war in case Maleficent returns. Meanwhile, Maleficent wakes up and finds herself in a strange place with a bandage around her stomach. As she moves around to find out where she is, she sees a group of other creatures like her, having a meeting about taking down the humans. A man named Bora leads the meeting, and he says that whatever might have happened to Maleficent could be coming for them too. He also adds that if a man named Connell didn't save Maleficent, she might be dead already. Connell disagrees with the idea of going to war because he thinks they're better suited to living in a world of peace. However, Bora says the best thing is to act fast and make the first move in the war against the humans. As the other creatures ask if they can win the war, Bora points to Maleficent and says she's the one who can help them. He then goes toward her and provokes her into using her powers. As she shows what she can do, Bora says that she's the one who can help them in the war. Following this, Bora and the others leave. But Connell goes to meet Maleficent. As she asks where she is, he tells her to follow him. Even though she's initially hesitant, Maleficent follows him and eventually realizes that she's in a kingdom with other creatures like her, called the Dark Fae. Connell tells her that they all went into hiding after humans started killing some of them. He also adds that despite this, he thinks a war will only hurt them more. He then mentions that he believes they can live in a world where they don't have to hide from humans. Elsewhere, Aurora returns to the human kingdom, but she's unaware that a creature named Pinto has sneaked out with her. As Pinto sneakily goes around the house, Ingrid's cat sees him, and he has to find somewhere to hide. However, he only ends up landing inside Lickspittle's lab. Without much hesitation, Lickspittle sees Pinto and keeps him as a test subject for his next experiment. Meanwhile, Aurora goes to inform Ingrid that she didn't see Maleficent. Ingrid then consoles her for having an evil godmother. She also says she's ready to repair the relationship between the Moorfolk and the humans. With this, she instructs Gerda to make an announcement to the people of the Moors, inviting them to Aurora's wedding in 3 days. While the announcement is being made, Philip tells Aurora that they don't have to do the wedding yet if she's not fine. However, she says that her people deserve the peace that will come with their marriage. Elsewhere, Connell shows Maleficent a figure of a creature named the Phoenix. He tells her that the Dark Fae originated from the Phoenix, and that Maleficent is the last true descendant of the mighty creature. Connell also tells her that she's very powerful, and she needs to use her powers to bring peace to the Dark Fae. As they're talking, Bora shows up and informs Connell that the humans are inviting everyone to Aurora's wedding. He then mentions that they can take it as an opportunity to make the first move and kill them. Meanwhile, Ingrid continues to be nice to Aurora. She gives her a dress for the wedding, but Aurora doesn't seem to like it because she prefers the one made by her fairies. That night, the dress seems to bother Aurora, but Philip tells her to wear whatever she wants and keep being herself. The next day, Lickspittle makes progress in the development of a powerful powder to kill the Moorfolk using an indigenous flower called Tomb Bloom, which grows on a fairy's grave. Ingrid soon meets with him to ask for a progress report. He tells her about his new powder, and she asks for a live experiment. Just then, Lickspittle picks one of the creatures from the moors and pours the powder mixture on him. This allows the creature to vanish, and Ingrid looks happy. Lickspittle then tells her that he needs more Tomb Bloom, and she says she'll get her people on it. She then instructs her men to uproot all the Tomb Bloom they can find in the Moors' kingdom. As they do this at night, Maleficent senses that something is wrong, so she heads for the field only to find out what the humans have done. Bora follows her there, and as he joins her in complaining about the humans, it turns out that there are still some soldiers from humans hiding on the field. As they then shoot their special bullets at Maleficent, Kunal comes out of nowhere and stands in front of her. He takes all the bullets for her, and as she watches over him, Maleficent uses her powers to keep the soldiers back. Bora also fights some of them, until he eventually leaves with Maleficent and Connell. The next day, the Moorfolk arrive for the wedding, but only the magical creatures are allowed to stay in the hall. Diaval then realizes that something is wrong, so he starts thinking of what to do. Meanwhile, Philip also shows up to give Aurora a Tomb Bloom to make her happy. She asks him where he got it, and he says Ingrid gave it to him. At this point, Aurora is left confused as she wonders why Ingrid has a Tomb Bloom. She then sneaks into Ingrid's room and finds her closet. As she tries to fix the head of one of the mannequins, Aurora realizes that there's a secret door leading to an underground room. As she goes through the door, it doesn't take long before she sees Lickspittle and all the creatures he has kept for experimentation. She also sees a strange door and opens it only to see a spinning wheel. Lickspittle sees her and tries to kick her out, but as Aurora looks at the spindle, she gets a vision where she realizes that Ingrid was the one who cursed John. Aurora looks disappointed because she has already blamed Maleficent for something she didn't do. As she then faces Lickspittle, she discovers that he's also a creature from the Moors who was forced to work for Ingrid. Aurora tells him that they need to free the other creatures, but Ingrid then walks in. She confirms everything that happened and says she's not interested in peace with the Moorfolk. Aurora feels betrayed, but before she can do anything, Ingrid sends some guards to lock her in her room. Shortly after, Bora gets his people to prepare for war, while Maleficent takes care of Connell. Meanwhile, all the creatures from the moors are locked in the chapel, after which Gerda starts releasing the powder to kill them. Ingrid also joins Percival and his men on top of a tower, where she'll be giving strike orders. As Bora and his soldiers get closer to the palace, Ingrid gives the order to release the powder on them. This gets many of Bora's soldiers killed, so he starts planning a new course for attack. Elsewhere, Aurora gets tired of sitting without doing anything, so she escapes from her room and finds Philip, who is also confused about what's happened. As he then plans to join his soldiers in a war, because he thinks Maleficent started, Aurora tells him that he's making a mistake. She also mentions that Ingrid is responsible for everything that's happening, and she was also the one who cursed John. Philip is left shocked by this, and Aurora tells him to do something to help her people. Meanwhile, Connell is still very sick, but he has enough strength to tell Maleficent to use her powers to help her kind and also make peace with humans. Shortly after, he dies and releases all his powers to her. Back at the palace, Aurora tries to free her people from the chapel, but she's unable to do so. Diaval soon shows up and offers to help, but the barricade at the door is too big to lift. Meanwhile, one of the fairies sacrifices herself so that Gerda's powder spray can stop working. Following this, all the other fairies attack Gerda and kill her. Philip also confronts his mother about what she's doing, but she tells her guards to seize him, saying he's not well. However, Philip jumps down from the tower but is followed by Percival. As they land, Percival tries to get Philip to surrender, but the prince tells his old friend about Ingrid's plan. Before Percival can say anything, Bora attacks him and moves away immediately. Elsewhere, Diaval gets attacked by the soldiers while trying to open the chapel. Aurora is also held back from doing anything, and as she looks powerless, Maleficent suddenly appears. She transforms him into a bear, and with this, he's able to take down the soldiers and also free the creatures from the moors. Maleficent then flies away and heads for the tower where Ingrid is standing. Percival gets a chance to attack Bora, so he takes it. However, Bora survives. Just as he's about to retaliate, Philip stops Bora and tells him that he doesn't want the war. He also blames his mother for everything, saying Bora and his people can call off their attacks. Bora eventually has a rethink, so he leaves Percival. Philip then starts telling his men to stop fighting. Maleficent soon gets to the tower, and just as she's about to kill Ingrid, Aurora shows up, begging her not to do it because she's not evil. She then says sorry to Maleficent for doubting her, even though she's always been good. Just as she adds that she sees Maleficent as her mother, Ingrid shoots an arrow at Aurora. Maleficent immediately gets in the way, and this turns her into ashes. Aurora is left devastated by this, and she starts crying. Ingrid then brags about how she has always made the world think that Maleficent is the evil one. As she announces to the soldiers that Maleficent is now dead, the ashes on the floor suddenly start coming together. Maleficent becomes reborn in her animal form, and this leaves everyone shocked. Seeing as she has no other way to escape, Ingrid pushes Aurora down the tower so that Maleficent can focus on something else. This happens to work, and as Aurora falls, Maleficent saves her while Ingrid escapes. However, she only ends up getting caught by Bora and his people. Just then, Aurora appears to be fine after the fall, and she hugs Philip. Maleficent is also okay, and she looks happy to see her daughter again. Maleficent then asks Philip if he loves Aurora, and he says he does. With this, Maleficent gives her blessings to Aurora to be with Philip. Shortly after, Lickspittle has had a change of heart, so he gives the cursed spindle to Maleficent. As she receives it, she destroys it, and this helps John to wake up from his deep sleep. Philip then announces to his soldiers that there will be no more fighting. He adds that they'll now live as one with the Moorfolk in the Dark Fae. Following this, they all start preparing for his wedding with Aurora. Maleficent also turns Ingrid into a goat as she keeps talking about getting revenge. A while later, Bora thanks Maleficent for helping his people. He also says he wishes Connell could see what she has done. As they keep talking, Aurora calls Maleficent to walk her down the aisle. While Philip is waiting for them, he sees his mother now as a goat. He looks shocked to see this and asks Diaval if she can be changed back to normal. As he says it's possible, John shows up behind his son and says they'll only let Ingrid change back when they want. Just then, John hugs Philip and thanks him for bringing peace to the land, and Aurora gets married to Philip in a beautiful ceremony.